No matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, here's a place where you can take comfort in the knowing that whether if you've come to stay a while or just passing through, this door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. The God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Buddhist or Jew, this door is open to you.
Good morning. This door is open to you, and now it's open to our live streamers. If those of you that are in the building would turn and wave at those who are helping us in the back, and to those that are joining us virtually. It's good to be back. Last Sunday, I thought it would be prudent for me to stay home. I had been clearly exposed to COVID, but thank God I never got sick. So I just got to stay home for a few days and be sequestered, which a person like me never minds reading a book and doing something like that. But I want to acknowledge Beth. She's back in Georgia today, but didn't she do an amazing job last Sunday? So Beth, if you're tuning in, we want to thank you. Thank you for that. Let's take this time together to begin with an opening prayer. We just turn our awareness within for a moment, and we enter into that place of gratitude. We just give thanks for this breath of life, for the gift of life, and for the awareness that allows us to recognize it is a true gift. And it is we who direct our actions and our attitude throughout this day. It's we who open our hearts and share from that space of compassion and goodness and all things beautiful. Today we open to really explore what it is to know what it means to hold space within and without, and to come to discover the space, the ultimate presence in which we live and move and have our being. And for the sacred time of being here together, to be blessed and to be a blessing, we're truly grateful. And in the name of all that is holy, thank you, God. Amen. We're going to invite you to stand, and I'm going to ask Sarah to please come join me as we move into these congregational songs. This one says, "We Come Together" by Eddie Watkins Jr. Greet the neighbor next to you. Say namaste, I bow to you. Look around in the sanctuary and feel the love that's shining through. We come together, we come together, we come together. In the name of love, we come together, we come together, we come together. In the name of love, greet the neighbor next to you. Say God is love and so are you. You're at home in the sanctuary. Receive the love that's here for you. We come together, we come together, we come together. In the name of love, we come together, we come together, we come together. In the name of love. All right, so this time without needing to sing it, take this opportunity and extend your welcome. Blessings to those that are around you this morning. And again, we welcome those of you that are joining us from wherever you are. We welcome you, and we give thanks for your presence here today as well. Ready to get your spiritual boogie woogie on? I was driving to church one morning, one Sunday, and this little tune and this song just started flowing. Sing it with us. Here we go. I know who my source is, and I know who I am. Part of all that is, connected and whole I am. Yes, I know who my source is, and I know who I am. Part of all that is, connected and whole I am. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. You got it. Sing it out. And I know what my truth is, and I know where I stand. Part of all that is, on holy ground I am. Yes, I know what my truth is, and I know where I stand. Part of all that is, on holy ground I am. Here I stand. Here I stand.
Here I stand.
Here I stand. Play it, Mark. Yeah. I know what my source is, and I know where I am. Part of all that is, connected and whole I am. Yes, I know what my source is, and I know who I am. Part of all that is, connected and whole I am. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. And here I stand. Here I stand.
Here I stand.
Here I stand.
Here I stand.
Here I stand. Yeah. 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 Thank you. You may be seated. Mark, when I wrote that song, I didn't even know it could sound that good. We are blessed every Sunday with an amazing band, and this Sunday Dave De La Rosa was out of town, and so we are so blessed. Sarah, that many of you know, Sarah Kohrs, is in a musical duo, and some of you had the opportunity of hearing Mark at our volunteer appreciation banquet, and so this is Mark Tuominoska. Yeah. This is Mark on saxophone. And Mark is an amazing singer, and he plays just about every instrument he can get his hands on. So we're hoping he's going to enjoy being here. And then we're so blessed. Richard's already gone down, but this amazing band of Richard, Joel, Pete, Joey, and today we have Sarah with us. Sarah, if you want to come on up, thank you so much. This is the time in our service where we acknowledge our youth program. We have a program for babies. We have a nursery, all the way through a teen program. And so if we have any children or youth in the chapel that would like to go back and join those, little Asher heads over. We're going to acknowledge and bless our young people by extending this blessing to them. And let's extend it to children everywhere. This that says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Have a wonderful Sunday school experience this morning. We'd also like to extend a special welcome to anyone that may be here, first of all, in the building for the first time today. If this is your first time, and all we ask is you raise your hand, one of our welcoming team members will extend this connections card to you. So we want to welcome you. There's a few over on this side. Unity folks, if you'll lovingly point to where you saw a hand go up, our ushers will find them. There's a red heart, and if you'd like to wear that heart, we can acknowledge you as being a newcomer and extend a special welcome to you. So whether this is your first time, whether it's your second time, or you've been here every Sunday, or whether this is your first time online, or perhaps you join us frequently, we want to extend this blessing to one another. And it says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Yes. I want to invite up Diane Swift, one of our prayer chaplains today. Diane's going to be sharing the reading. Come on up, Diane. She's going to share an inspirational reading for us today. As she's coming up, if you've not yet turned your cell phone off, this is a great time to turn it off or on airplane mode, because it just keeps the airwaves clear, and we really appreciate that. Would you please welcome Diane Swift, one of our prayer chaplains. Thank you, Diane. Hold it really close, Diane.
There's a button, too.
You know, it just wouldn't be church if I literally, I had a dream last night and the microphones were not working. We have one of the best teams in the back, but they have to work with what we are doing up here. So let's repita, por favor.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. First of all, it is an honor to be a prayer chaplain in this wonderful place. I love unity. So you must not hide. Meditation, education, and the knowledge of God's green acre is of no value if you keep it to yourself. So come out wherever you are. Leave deep footprints. So today I show my heart and my face to the world, to my family, to my friends, to my community. Through my presence, I share with others the very best that I know this life to be about. Love, communion, natural treasures, and the essence of the one are the blessings of this day. And that is from Clarissa Pincola Estes, from Women Who Run with Wolves. So have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. Sarah.
It was there at the outset, shining like a beacon from your eyes. There was no way around it, even though it took me by surprise. And I was looking at you, looking at me. It was hard to believe, but easy to see. All this love, it was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. It was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. It was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. All this love, it was there at the outset, rocking like an angel in your arms. There was no doubt about it. We both recognized it from the start. It was going so deep, couldn't believe all that your eyes were saying to me. All this love, it was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. It was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. It was there at the outset. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. All this around it. It was there at the outset, waiting for me. All is love.
Yeah. Wow, 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 wow. Sarah, before you leave, I'm going to put you in the band on the spot. I happen to know it's Sarah's birthday today. And is there anybody else that's having a birthday anytime this year? Sarah, what would be a good key for happy birthday?
I don't know.
Grab it, Mark.
What do you think? What key?
We're- To Sarah and to everybody who's having a birthday or has had this year. Sing it, Mark. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. You are wonderful, and you and you and you and you and you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Thank you, band. They'll be back in a minute. Thank you, Mark. You fit right in here, I'm just saying. Thank you for being here today. So the month of July, which happens to be my birthday month too. And so it's a great month as far as I'm concerned. This month we've been having an exploration called Distilled Wisdom, where each Sunday we're taking one book and looking at the essence of what is in that book. We started with a book called The Practice of Appreciative Inquiry. Last week, Beth took the book, which book did she say? The Eye of the Storm. And today, the book that we're going to talk about in just a moment, and I'll show you the title in just a moment, is called The Art of Holding Space. But let me begin with this. Have you ever noticed how different people bring out different things in you? Have you ever noticed how some people naturally bring out your best? Have you ever noticed how some people feel like they meet us, or at least for me, it's what I call sandpaper for the soul. It just brings out your worst. Maybe like my sister and I are only 18 months apart. We can bring out each other's absolute best and absolute worst. That's what that closeness and that love does. Some people will bring out your silly side, your playful side. Some people are more likely to bring out your serious side. Some people help really spark your creative genius, and others help spark your critical nemesis. Some people make you feel more guarded and closed off. Your dog doesn't even feel comfortable there. And other people, you just open up and just start sharing, and you're like, why in the world did I just feel so at home and just share everything with them? We have the capacity, other people, we feel different sometimes around. People bring things out in us. And so one thing to consider is, what do you tend to bring out in people? Ask some people if you don't know. People that'll be honest with you. What do you tend to bring out in people? And what would happen if we became more intentional about creating spaces that really brought out the best, that would allow us to connect, and to connect with our inner resourcefulness, our own inner radiance, to be able to really connect with that? What if we were intentional about bringing that out together? Well, that's what we're talking about today in the art of holding space. What does it really mean, and how do we do that? Just a little bit about the book first. The book was published in 2020, so obviously it had been written post-plague, before that came out, so it was very timely when it came out in 2020. It was written by Heather Plett, P-L-E-T-T, and to share just a little bit at the beginning of what she says. She said, "In my late 20s, I became convinced that it was my job to keep my loved ones alive and happy and emotionally healthy. Forget holding space. I needed to try to control what was going on with everyone so they felt safe and well cared for, because that's the message that had been imprinted upon me." Let's pause a minute. Can anybody relate? Trying to keep all the balls in the air and everything in order and everything okay. She said, "In my late 20s, when I was 3 months pregnant, married with my first child, I had to be hospitalized due to difficulties, and I was released from the hospital but told to be very cautious in how much I exerted myself. Only a month and a half later, my husband's emotional health spiraled, and suddenly I found myself scrambling to figure out how to support him, trying to learn everything I could, but even despite my best efforts, he attempted suicide. After a week in the hospital, he survived. He was sent home with me, and I was his primary support. I was overwhelmed with the responsibility of keeping my husband alive and my unborn baby alive. 5 years later, and 2 children later, I was partway through my 3rd pregnancy when once again, I found myself in a hospital bed trying to keep a baby alive. This time, despite my best efforts and the doctors, it ended with a stillborn son. Something changed in me during the 3 weeks I had to spend in the hospital. She said she was just broken open. When so many things spiral out of control and you just can't fix it anymore. She reached a point of authentic surrender and saying, I got to find out how to do things differently. She said she stumbled across something synchronistically called The Circle Way by Christina Baldwin. She began to immerse herself in different spiritual practices and a range of teachings, a quest for wisdom of how to live in a world that felt increasingly chaotic and out of my control. I was getting better and better. And then a few years later, I was ready to quit my job and start a business, and then my husband's health spiraled out of control again. His 2nd suicide attempt. I found myself desperate to keep him alive and fix the things that sent him spiraling. And at the time, I now had 3 daughters trying to take care of. And then my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. In the midst of all of that, it was towards the end of my mother's time, she said, one day my mom said to me, "Honey, I don't know how to do this." She said the only reply was, "I don't know how to do this either." And so there we sat, waiting for her to enter into her next story of emergence. Hanging between that place of no longer and not yet. No longer fully alive, but not yet liberated. But that place applies to so many of us. No longer what used to be, but not yet what I want to be. No longer this, but not yet this. And how do we be with that space that she calls liminal space? She said, during that time, the hospice palliative care nurse was a godsend. She worked with her and her siblings and just guided them through that process, a process where there's nothing to do, it's all about being. And that combined with everything else she learned, she said 2 years after my mom died, I wrote a blog post online that's now been seen by over 10 million people. It's about how I brought together all those pieces in order to do what I call the art of holding space. She's now the co-founder of a center for holding space, and where she has a certified practitioner program. She said, holding space is a complex practice that evolves and evolves us. After years of doing this work, I'm convinced that holding space is a spiritual act, and that what holds it all together is something bigger than any of us. While we hold space, there's a greater essence we can lean into, especially when we need courage and strength and wisdom. How many of you know what she's talking about in that place between used to be and not yet? And needing to hold space. When I was thinking about this, we hold space for one another in a conversation with a friend. When you listen and you care and you have the self-awareness to be present to them without interrupting or trying to fix. I've had more than one spiritual counseling session that lasted 50 minutes, and I talked maybe 2 of them. But the space was such that the other person could share so deeply that when they left, things had cracked open and been revealed because they got to express what needed to be expressed. I asked myself the question, it's like, well, did Jesus, did the Buddha, did these individuals hold space? And one of the interesting things I thought about, this is recorded in more than one gospel, but for example, in the Gospel of Mark, when Jesus was going into the garden to pray, he asked 3 of his closest disciples, Peter, James, and John, will you come sit here while I pray? Think about that. Jesus, a master teacher, saying, will you come hold space while I pray? The Buddha, in teaching his followers, said, can you view another without judgment and hold them in loving kindness? That's another way of saying, can you hold space? I think that if there's anything, one of the many things our world could use right now, perhaps it's our willingness to hold the space of compassion to one another. So let's talk a little bit about learning first to be aware of the space that we're holding, what's inside of us. And then how we expand and extend our presence, how we become more conscious about that. And then how we draw support from the ultimate, the all that is space that is always right here, enlivening us. So the first one is learning to be aware of the space that we're holding, our inner space. That knowing what's going on inside of here. When the people around Jesus said, we have over 600 laws and rules we're supposed to keep. How do you distill it? What's the highest one? And he said it's love. Love your neighbor, love your God, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Every relationship stems from our relationship with ourself. And so this first one, learning to be aware of the space that we're holding. A few weeks ago, flew out of the Asheville airport to Kansas City, and I had not been in the Asheville airport in a while, but I learned that when I went to, how you have to go through the screening, they had this thing that looked like a piece of medical equipment now, and they installed it in May. They're 3D, these really nice, futuristic-looking things that your stuff goes through to x-ray it. And I jokingly said to the person, I said, it would be really nice if we could get on that belt and go through it and you'd give us a health certificate as we want. Just let us know what's going on inside. And he laughed. And then as I was going on, I thought, no, it would actually be better. What if you could go through some kind of screening and then they'd hand you a report and say, okay, you're just so full of light and love. You just have this beautiful radiance inside. More often, it would probably be like, you got a little repression stuff going on over here. There's some anger that it appears you're trying to stuff down, and there's some old stuff we can't even tell what's in there. And that there's some angst going on. There's a lot of static. You just may want to know that you probably should put on a sign that says under construction as you're walking around. That it's not completely safe. Knowing what is our internal atmosphere. And so how would you, just as a general, you don't have to, please don't answer right now, but how would you describe your inner space, your environment? Do you enjoy being in your own stuff? Is it something that would benefit others if it were freely being expressed out there? Because whether you know it or not, it is being put out there. how to be with that, know what kind of space we have. I have a colleague, he's a minister now, but he often tells the story about he grew up in a very challenging environment. And in particular, he and his mother really clashed a lot. And as he was growing up and becoming a young man, he said, I would blame her for everything to anyone that would listen. He said, one day I was literally blaming her for my poor posture when this inner voice said, you can sit up straight, try it. And he said he'd sat up straight, and then he said, well, if I can't blame her, what does that make me? And he said in that moment, something in him, this aha, you know when those holy ahas drop in? In that moment, he said something reached him, a level of self-awareness. And it set him on a path to begin to really examine what is in here. A few years ago at our Unity Convention in Kansas City, Father Gregory Boyle was there. He's the founder and the director of Homeboy Industries, the world's largest gang intervention and rehabilitation program. He's an author and a minister. He's just an amazing individual. And one thing everything he said was remarkable, but one phrase, he said, what I've learned about working with men and women in gangs and people who have a lot of pain in your life, that if you don't transform your pain, you're going to transmit it. That is so true. If you don't transform your pain, you're going to transmit it. And life, have you noticed, has a way of projecting it right back, like bouncing right back to you. And we want to make it all about them. But the first powerful thing for us to do is to be aware of the space that we are holding. Heather, in this book, she quotes Marianne Williamson, who says, your character defects are not where you're bad, but where you're wounded. But no matter who or what caused the wound, it's yours and you're responsible for it. Ouch, but so true. She goes on in another place, she talks about so often what happens when we're beginning to be present to what's going on inside of us, and perhaps we realize something's not working, we need to change. There's a tendency that can happen that is called spiritual bypassing. It's a term that was coined by John Wellwood, where we adopt spiritual practices, beliefs, or dogma designed to avoid the messiness of what's going on. She said, I've noticed a widespread tendency to use ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, unfinished developmental tasks. When we are spiritually bypassing, we often use the goal of salvation or a savior or liberation as a way to rationalize what she calls premature transcendence, where we rise above what we really have to go through. That the caterpillar has to go through the goo to become the butterfly. And so to realize and to have the tools to know that it's not really life. Have you ever noticed it's not truly an either or, but it's much more of a both and. People feel like, well, how can I be on my spiritual path and still depressed? How can I be really praying every day and still feel guilty? How can I move forward and still have doubt? Because it's not an either or, it's a both and. I can feel this way and this way, but there's a ... I can be in the struggle, in the making, in the transformation process. And at times, just like the grief process, there are times you feel joy and liberation. And then I notice sometimes people will catch themselves because they don't feel like they have the right to yet feel joyful. Or the grief just swells up again and we feel like we'll never come out of the other side. But it's realizing that we have the capacity, the the spaciousness, to be present to both. And in the so doing, we realize that we're held in a space that knows how to help us navigate through all of that. So again, the first step about holding space is learning to be aware of the space that we're holding, our internal climate. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, this is back in the late 1800s, had experienced his wife being healed. Over a course of 18 months, she was healed from terminal tuberculosis, and he had witnessed that. And he himself had some physical challenges and some financial challenges and a lot of questions. And he wanted to have an experience. He wanted to change his own life. And so what he decided to do was to sit for 1 hour every evening in the silence and meditate. He began by saying, I am now in the presence of pure being. I'm immersed in the Holy Spirit of life and love and wisdom. And I allow that higher power and presence, that power and presence to bless me. Now, if you've ever cultivated a practice of sitting with your own thoughts, of becoming an observer of your own internal what's going on, where is there an urge? Where is there an aversion? Where is there so much chatter that I can't separate myself from the experience that's happening within myself? One of the first parts of creating an environment is learning some of the tools to be with our inner landscape, where we begin to realize I can have a lot of experiences, but those experiences don't have me. They don't have the I am that I am. That there's a part of me that knows how to navigate this. And there's something that knows how to grow me. It's like in meditation, if some things keep coming up for me, I literally have a visual of it's like putting trash out and waiting for the great God of my being to eventually recycle it. Make it something better. Make it something better. Make it something better. Learning to be aware of the space we're holding, our inner space. The second then is becoming more aware of the general space we hold in our encounters and in our interactions. We interact with so many people and move through our days quite often so fast, we do it in a mechanical way. We have pleasantries or even ignore or don't even really pay attention. I read a story of a man with a 4-year-old daughter, and he came home from work and he was still kind of focused on his phone, and his little girl was eating an apple, and she said, Daddy, why is my apple turning brown? And he said, well, honey, because after you ate the skin off, the meat of the apple came into contact with the air, which caused it to oxidize, thus changing the molecular structure and turning it into a different color. His little 4-year-old daughter said, Daddy, are you talking to me? Reminding him of the most important thing, and that is to take time to connect. It never fails to amaze me how the idea of what I'm working on just shows up in my life as a teaching the week of. So yesterday afternoon, Tia, my partner, and I went to the Arboretum. We had a few hours, and we love to get out and walk around. We just love that place, and it's a place we can take our dog. So yesterday afternoon, we were walking around, and we'd only been there maybe 45 minutes when is that thunder? Is that a cloud? And then within just a few minutes, it starts sprinkling. Well, that was not in the plan, and it's starting to pick up. So we, if you know the place, we went all the way to the other end where there's an outside cafe and some covered seating. So we were able to get under some covered seating, and then with just a few minutes, the whole place is full of people. I believe every single person at a table had at least one dog with them. So there's all these people with all these dogs, and now it's pouring down rain. It's all happening. So what happened in the next hour that it rained was quite beautiful. We made new friends. In the space of an hour, the people who were here were talking, were asking questions and getting to know one another. We were making genuine connections because a space had been created for us to do that. People were laughing. It was remarkable. Within the end of the hour, it started getting lighter rain. And I said, we should probably gather up our doggy baby stroller, don't judge me, and put our little dog in it, who's 12 pounds, and get all of our stuff and just make a run all the way to the other end. And the people in the table beside us said, wait, just let one of us go and get a car and we'll just pick you up. Now, we did go our own, but I was thinking, I didn't even know these people an hour ago. And we have people saying, let me go get a car that I would have gotten in with what would have been strangers an hour ago to go find my car. Now think about this. If while we were sitting there, I said, how many of you are Republican and how many are Democrat? How many of you carry guns and how many of you would never have one? How many of you believe in abortion and blah, blah, blah? I'd probably be telling you about a mud fight today that took place at the Arboretum. The energy would have completely changed. Now, did those differences still exist? I'm sure they did. But there is a reason that so many cultures place so much emphasis on namaste. First and foremost, what would happen if we connected? You see, when we connected with those people, we were moved with compassion to know them better. We were moved with compassion to literally get out in the rain so somebody else didn't have to. People were literally moved to compassion because of a connection that took place in a space that got created. And so it makes us begin to think about what would really happen if we could be much more intentional about what's going on in here and am I sharing it out there? And what if we were deliberate in whoever they are? Let's just push that aside a moment and create the space to connect. Because if, and Lord knows we need to, if we have the tough conversations, if we reach a peace that is big enough to encompass some differences, if we're able to come together and work together and do those challenging things, it will never happen unless and until we can first connect. How many of you would be one that says, I'm willing to be a bridge builder, a connector? You don't have to tell everybody and say, I'm trying an experiment, so let's see if we can connect here. But to genuinely try to make those connections, powerful things begin to happen. And so we can't hold space, we can't make that connection if we remain in a defensive posture. That's why all the scriptures talk about unconditional love. Unconditional love does not mean you love any and everything. Unconditional love means that love is present in the presence of everything. And so when we can still have your opinions, you may still want to help, you may still strongly disagree, but it's about the energy that we bring into that. So learning to be aware of that. We can't hold space if we're defensive or in judgment. We also can't hold space from a pedestal, the author says. She also says we can't hold space if we're continually hijacking space. We all have different ways of communicating. Some of us, like, I have to tell people, I'll say, I'm just thinking out loud. Because people that hear things and like to move right into action will say, but you said go do so-and-so. And I'm like, I did not. I was just thinking out loud about a lot of possibilities. So different people have different ways of processing. It's important for some people more than others to learn when we're hijacking space and how to be present in that space. So learning to be aware of that space and then cultivating the capacity to go deeper. The gift of holding space is not about offering advice or trying to guide them to solve their problem, but holding them in the light of their own resourcefulness and radiance and wholeness. It's also important to understand this when we're talking about holding deep space. We can hold space just like I talked about, that making the connection with a person is holding space. But then we need to have the ability and the willingness to really sometimes hold a much deeper space for one another. Where tough love, where healthy boundaries, where all of those things are truly, truly required. When we're holding that kind of deep space for ourselves and for others, it does not mean that you still don't hold people accountable, because you do. It's simply talking about there's a time to hold space and a time perhaps to then deal with and hold accountable. Every action doesn't call for holding deep space. It also doesn't mean that you never give feedback or advice, because sometimes, especially when it's asked for, it's very helpful. It also doesn't mean that you're not going to have your own feelings and opinions, or that you're not going to care, because you will. But it's about the opportunity to be present. Holding space is about being present and expanding your presence. It's about you being grounded in the truth and the depth of your being. And then with intention and effort, actively keeping open without trying to judge or fix. Using the space to be in awe and to behold, so that the other can begin to discover their own roots and their own wings, their own resourcefulness, and find their own way. The author, Leo Buscaglia, when he was talking about cultivating deep space, author Leo Buscaglia said, "I was once asked to judge a contest where the purpose was to find a child who had demonstrated deep caring. And he said the winner was a 4-year-old boy. He said this 4-year-old boy had a next-door neighbor who was an elderly gentleman. And this elderly gentleman had recently lost his wife. Upon seeing the man cry, the little boy walked over to the gentleman's yard, climbed into his lap, and just sat there. When his mother asked him what he had said to the neighbor, the little boy said, 'Nothing, I just helped him cry.'" Wow. Wow. I wonder where that little 4-year-old is today. Maybe the Dalai Lama or somebody, I don't know. But holding that kind of space as a child, there's a part of us that knows that there's a time for words of encouragement, there's a time for whatever else. But what's being called forth is, how do we become more mindful about holding those spaces of compassion to one another? Richard, would you give me that song? I'm going to ask the whole band to go ahead and come up. I am here to bear witness without an agenda or judgment. I know the gateway to pure presence and potential is wide open. I'm here to bear witness without agenda or judgment. I know the gateway to pure presence is wide open. Because the final aspect of this, we discover the kind of space we're holding within. We become mindful of the space we extend, and being intentional about holding perhaps a better quality of loving space. And then to realize that which holds all of us. I'll never forget, as a child, Mark grew up in the Assemblies of God. I grew up in the Church of God. We were talking just briefly about that. I'll never forget a revival preacher coming through, and he told a story as a kid that I heard. He said that there was a man many years ago walking, carrying a heavy bag, and he was walking down a dusty road, and along came a farmer with a big horse and wagon, and there was some children on the back, and the farmer stopped and said, "Hey, you looks like you got a heavy load. Do you want to climb up on my wagon?" And the man said, "Oh my gosh, I would be so thankful." And so he climbed up, and he's sitting with the little kids, and the man is sitting there bent over holding his bag. And one of the little boys says, "Is that bag heavy?" And the man said, "Yes, son, it's very heavy." And the little boy said, "Well, why don't you put it down?" And the man said, "Well, son, your father's kind enough to carry me. I can carry my own bag." And the little kids giggled, and the boy said, "Mister, the horse is carrying all of us anyway." And it's like, there comes a time we need to discover what's carrying us anyway. And practicing this quality of holding space is to come to discover that the space is not absent. That's why the many different sacred texts talk about the silence or the stillness or entering into that place. There are many labels that describe it, nirvana, whatever you want to call it. But it's coming into pure presence, and to realize it's not the absence of, it's the presence of. to befriend it, to feel the love, to feel what happens when you allow yourself to go into that place. So one final offering is a practice, if you're willing. It's a so what. So holding space, what is something you can practically do this week that would help you? Well, I'm glad you asked, because one of the things that you could do is a reflective practice. Well, it's actually twofold. In the morning, set your intention to be aware of having a spaciousness of openness and compassion, and holding the space that you want to hold. So you set your intention. But then at the end of the day, it only takes 3 minutes or less. At the end of the day, just go somewhere by yourself quiet for a few moments and do a little replay and ask yourself, was there any interaction, any place today where I could have held more, I could have held space in a more open way or compassionate way or healing way? Just do a little replay. Most of the time you'll find like, oh, yeah, I could have. I could have done something differently there. And because it's the power to replay, in that moment, just pause and say, okay, let's just suppose if in that moment, rather than doing what I did, if I had held space there, what would have emerged? What was seeking to emerge? I guarantee you, if you begin to do this, what you will begin to feel is there's something loving, there's something more accepting, there's something that makes you feel more safe and at home and okay and unarmored. There's something that lets you feel in such a way that you could genuinely show up and to offer that. So setting the intention in the morning, and then at the end of the day, was there any place where I could have held space in a more open way, or a more compassionate way, or a more healing way? So no need to push, no need to try, no need to worry or question why. Here you can surrender, let it all go. You can release and know. So I breathe in, I breathe out, and I breathe out. I take in, and I take in, and I give out, and I give out, and I let love, and I let love, and I let go, and I let go, and I release, and I know, and I know. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just hear this coming from your soul. No need to push, no need to try, no need to worry or question why. Surrender, let it all go. You can release and know. And so in this place, we acknowledge that when we carve out those moments to be still, that we realize that we never stop buzzing inside. The thoughts never completely go away. But the very intention of to be still, my soul, to go within, to revisit that intention through a committed practice every day, is to cultivate the capacity to know yourself beyond the noise, beyond the thought. It's to know your capabilities beyond your reactionary impulses. It's your capacity to know your strength and your courage beyond your urges or your current limitations. There's a capacity within your being that flows from beyond your soul effort or your current intellect. There's a capacity that we call God, all that is the activity of life and intelligence and vitality, that just as it knows how to bring forth the potential of a seed, if the seed has certain conditions that are established, when we begin to establish that willingness and that time of coming apart within ourselves, the seed of our Christ potential, our Atman, the divine spark of our being, the seeds of our own potential will do what they're created to do. They will grow us into the unfoldment of our highest expression of self. And so may we commit to practices of mindfulness and prayer and meditation. May we commit to ways of gentle, loving self-accountability, and commit to mindfulness and ways of showing up that genuinely seeks to be the light of the world, the compassionate spark in the room, the space that is safe and without judgment. May we create that in our heart, in our home, in this spiritual community, and wherever we are, because that is what is meant by heaven on earth. It is to dwell in that reality right here and right now. And so we begin to acknowledge this and give thanks that there's a presence of gratitude. Gratitude is all around me, before me, behind me, within me. And so I invite you to just gently bring your awareness back. And when you bring it back, bring back a smile. Lift your own spirit. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around. Would you please stand? And I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful, 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 I'm so grateful. Dance steps. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, and gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. Flip mark. And I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, more time. I'm so grateful. Yeah. Thank you for holding space. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark and Dan. Sarah, I'm going to invite you on up. Thank you. You may be seated. How many of you are willing to practice that with me this week? Yeah. Let's try it. If everybody will try setting that intention and doing that review, let's see how that goes for a week. Now, along that same line, if you receive our e-news, you may have already noticed this, but we just issued a survey this week. It's online, and if you've got our e-news, there's a link directly in that. But just as you exit, there's a table, and we created some little pieces of paper with the link here if you want to take it online. Now, I know because some of you remind me you still have flip phones and you don't like computers. No worry, we printed a few of them. If you prefer the pen and paper method, there's some actual paper hard copies out there. There's a basket, you can leave those in. This is also the time, we had a class this past week, some of you are interested in becoming a member. So there's a basket, you can put those application forms in, those forms are there, and I'll be around after the service if you have any questions. Now the reason we issued this survey, one of the things we're asking is let us know what kind of classes, what kind of spiritual tools do you need? What are some of the things that we can do to help you create and cultivate what you're trying to do in your life? So we're looking for what are the things that most of you are saying. So for those of you that will take a few moments to answer that, we greatly appreciate it. How many of you are loving this band today? As Sarah prepares for her second original song, I'm going to ask our ushers to come forward and Diane Swift, our prayer chaplain. As Diane comes forward, she's holding a wooden box we call our prayer request box. We literally have slips of paper on that table that you can put a written prayer request in that. And then our ushers are coming forward now. Our ushers are available, and they remind us that we are the stewards. We're not supported financially by anyone outside and beyond those that feel that this is worth your support. And so we ask you, if this is something that supports you, to consider how you may support it as would work for you. And so we acknowledge the gift of prayer. Diane will be available after the service in our youth space if you'd like individual prayer. And our ushers are going to prepare to collect our offering. And so we affirm this affirmation together that says, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. Sarah.
I wanna let loose, I wanna get down, I wanna take all these inhibitions and throw them on the ground. I wanna break free, I wanna do it now. I wanna take every feeling that I have and shout them all out loud. I wanna carry the light around me. I wanna carry all the light that found me. I wanna carry the light. Yeah. I wanna get lost, feel a little alive. I wanna put both my arms around you and see if we can fly. I wanna dive deep, yeah, I wanna step up. I wanna walk right to the fire and see what I'm made of. I wanna carry the light around me. I wanna carry all the light. I'm so glad it found me. I wanna carry the light. Carry the light. relentless light that found me. I want to carry the light. Carry the light.
Yeah. Woo. Thank you. Wow. All I can say is thank you for spending your birthday, and Kenny G ain't got nothing on you. Wow. That was awesome. Would you show them your love again? And Richard, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Come on up, Richard. So we invite you to stand as we close with our closing song that says, "Let there be peace on the earth," and let it begin with God's love in our heart. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator. Brothers and sisters are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow.